Glistening under the bright Chicago Auto Show lights, this sleek red Chevy Camaro stands out with an important message to drive home.
This device does not need to be going when you're driving. Jenna was pure sunshine, which is why our logo contains the sun, because if you were around Jenna, you were definitely going to smile.
It's 217 Probcast. Kyle here along with Brenda. Thank you so much for joining us. Brenda, this is going to be a much different episode than the folks are probably used to, where they're used to hijinks and wacky shenanigans. Not to say that we might not get up to any. I don't know. There's cream pies over there. But we're going to be talking about a lot of serious stuff too, because everybody is affected by this, either through unfortunate circumstance or just, hey man, you drive and I know I get distracted, and I need to be better at that. So Brenda, thank you so much for coming on the show. And why don't you? Well, first of all, you're no stranger to public speaking. You're a public speaker here in the 217, teaching that, right?
Correct. I have been a public speaking professor for more than 20 years throughout Central Illinois and in the Illinois Department of Corrections. Wow. So talking and being a journalist, I've been a journalist for a long time, and you know, my big goal though, of course, was to be a radio person. That was my original plan.
No joke.
Coming out of high
serious?
School, absolutely, 100%.
We've lived very similar lives in that way.
Yes, most definitely. So that was my calling. I kind of fell into teaching, but I've been able to use those skills, both journalism wise and public speaking wise, to kind of do what I'm doing right now. I'm still teaching full time, but I'm also trying to get the word out and trying to make people safe.
You're doing that, and it had to happen through some unfortunate circumstances. I'm so sorry. Here's the thing. Most people I talk to, I've done radio for a long time, I've done stand-up comedy. I'm the talker here, but now that I got a literal professor on it, now I'm like stumbling over my words like, come on, man, diction, come on.
There you go.
Oh, okay. So yeah, but you are a spectacular teacher, and you're helping people out, and unfortunately it had to happen after something tragic happened, right?
Correct. I have another life that I was a victim advocate for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And so with that position that I had for many years in Illinois, I got trained by the best and brightest across the country in both law enforcement and in the legal profession. So I really felt like my place in a bad situation like this was to be the helper and to accompany families to court and to be there for them in impaired driving cases. And then November 16th, 2019, everything got put in reversed. And that is when my 14-year-old daughter, Jenna, her 14-year-old best friend, Holly, and my former mother-in-law and father-in-law, Bill and Jackie, were all killed in a head-on collision. They were attending a playoff football game in Williamsville versus Vandalia, and they were almost back to their destination of where they started in Vandalia when a 17-year-old crossed the center line and hit them head-on. They were in a minivan. He was in a Ford F-150, and he crossed the center line and hit them head-on. And so from that moment on, everything that I was that day, I am no longer. Everything in my life has changed, and definitely different.
I didn't realize that you were already a Mothers Against Drunk Driving advocate before this happened. And he, I'm assuming, wasn't drunk, but
no.
Nonetheless, it proved to be what it was. And since that day, you have been trying to make sure that doesn't happen again, right?
Correct. I've been of the belief that the only way that I can make any sense of any of this is to do what I can to try to keep it from happening to other people.
Yeah.
And I feel like what I've been doing is gaining some momentum. We have different things that we're trying to do and getting ready to go into nonprofit status that is also going to help our cause more. But
that's fantastic.
The big thing that I'm doing right now is when I'm not teaching and not doing that job, I am going into schools, going into organizations, telling our story, talking to them about safety. And then a spinoff conversation of that is being able to find joy during difficult times.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Early on, my oldest daughter, Brandy, we kind of adopted the saying, find joy in the journey, because we knew that our Jenna, my daughter and her sister Jenna was not someone who wanted to have people sad around her. She did not like it when people cried. She wanted to be happy. And you being a stand-up guy can appreciate that when she was little and I asked her what she wanted to be, she said, I want to be one of those people that stands up in front of people and gets paid to make people laugh.
Oh, man.
And so that really, although she kind of changed what she wanted to do when she got older, by the time we lost her, that was really one of her guiding things. Was she wanted to spread joy and she wanted to make people laugh. And anybody that knew her knew that Jenna was never serious. She always had a smile on her face. She wanted you to have a smile on her face. So we had to kind of make the decision early on. This was either going to kill us, or we were going to try to take Jenna and take her with us and be on this journey of trying to find joy. That's first and foremost. And the second thing we say that we do in honor of best friend Holly believed that if everybody was kind, you could build a mountain of kindness. And so we say that we find joy for Jenna, we be kind for Holly. And the big thing is just trying to impress upon people to just drive. Because that ultimately is why they're not here today. We are currently in a criminal justice phase of our case. We have been sitting in that criminal justice phase for a very long time. That case in Montgomery County is not my most favorite thing to talk about, but the driver in the case was charged. It took 18 months to charge him, but he was charged with improper lane usage and with a Class 4 felony of aggravated unlawful use of a communication device. And so those two charges didn't happen for 18 months, and that person was charged as a juvenile. The problem with that is that any punishment as a juvenile goes away when you turn 21. But this case has languished for such a long time in court through COVID and other things, that he was aging out of this process. And so that driver turned 21 back in October. And so prior to that, we were able to go into court and we were able to get him moved from juvenile court to adult court.
Because if you would not have done that, he would have just, boom, he would have gotten away.
Crazy.
Oh my God.
That's exactly what would happen. So I always need to address the fact that he has been charged, but he certainly is innocent until proven guilty.
Allegedly, he was on his phone when this happened, and that's how. And wow. And we had a conversation last week on the podcast about mental health here in Illinois, and how this, unspeakable tragedy happens to you, and how I know how I would deal with it, or at least I know how I would want to deal with it. But unfortunately, I think so many people can just, myself included, you take those feelings and you try to bury them and you just try to ignore it and you move on. But instead, you've obviously turned this into a positive. As much as one can, right? And through that, it's amazing that you say that you're able to have conversations with families that similar things have happened to about processing that trauma, right?
Right.
Because
most definitely.
Yeah, I can't. And obviously therapy is amazing, but I can imagine that talking to somebody who has experienced something similar that's something that.
Correct. And I think the big thing when you speak of mental health, grief is a horrible thing, and to lose any one of these people would have been a tragedy. But to lose all four of these powerhouse personalities that I had in my life is unreal, and is something that I thought I only read about or watched on TV, and then it became my life, because every one of those people meant so much to me. So to have to do that 4 times over, and to have a funeral for Holly one day and a visitation the rest of that day for our 3 people, and a funeral the next day, for 3 people standing in line for visitation for hours and hours and hours, greeting thousands of people that came through that church. I don't know how I got through that, to be quite honest. And I know that all of our families, I don't know how we've survived it. And I think the thing that I had to make a decision very quickly was I going to live through this? Because I honestly will tell you, from a mental health standpoint, I was afraid that I would die. I was afraid that I would die from a heart attack, from a broken heart, or that I would not be able to take the pain of losing my daughter. And even with so many people saying, but you have another daughter to live for who's already lost her sister and her grandparents. She can't lose anymore. And some days the pain was so bad that didn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
And that's scary too. So I'm very thankful for the people who were in my corner. I'm very thankful for my surviving daughter, that I made it out on the other side of that, because I was very worried for a while.
It's amazing that you not only made it through to the other side, but again, that you're helping other families process that. And I don't know, maybe it's me personally, but I also feel maybe it's like everybody, when you get into your 30s, maybe you begin to understand how your mental health is important every step of the way, and how it's so very important to keep up on that.
For sure. And I can tell you that through this journey, there has been at least 3 that come to mind right now, 3 different therapists that have helped me along and have been with me every step of the way, and a whole tribe of friends and a few family members who have been an ear. And I am so thankful for those people who have stayed the course with me and who were willing to stop by and listen, because being around somebody who is going through such profound grief is not an easy task, and dealing with the ups and downs that come with that. And I think that's really hard for people, because they're used to the Brenda that's always ready for a good time, that is always ready to go out and have a laugh and crack a joke. And while I'm still that person, a lot of things certainly have changed about me, and my passions are different. And so I've really, truly made it my mission that outside of a classroom, I wear a hat of activist and of trying to go into schools and car shows and anything else that I can do to raise that awareness.
Speaking of which, we have the car out there. So tell us about this car. Yeah.
Well, I started this early on. I knew that I really felt like the way to honor my family was going to have something to do with a car or motorsports, because I was a gearhead of sorts. My very first car, at the age of 14, my parents acquired a friend's 1978 Pontiac Firebird. So that was my very first car.
The way that you said that almost made it seem like they stole it.
Well, they didn't steal it,
but acquired a friend's.
Probably they didn't pay enough for it. I mean, that's
right.
Possible.
Oh my gosh.
So that was my first car, and then ultimately, when I met my daughter's father, he was a drag racer.
Oh,
and
wow.
So my Firebird went from just being this fun car on the street to being at the Coles County Dragway in Charleston.
Man.
And so then I would participate in the street class and in the all-female classes. And then ultimately, when, after we got married and we started having these girls, by then the National Hot Rod Association's Junior Drag Racing League was in full effect. And so my oldest daughter, Brandy, who has been drag racing since she has been 9 years old.
Wow.
And then,
Oh
almost
God.
10 years later, her little sister Jenna came along. And so Jenna started racing when she was 8 years old.
You're kidding me.
So
Man.
both of them grew up at a drag strip.
I bet.
They grew up being behind the wheel. And it's ironic that when they were racing, And oldest daughter, Brandy, still races. She's now escalated into, she drives a 1964 Chevelle in the Super Pro Big Boys class. She races against her dad.
Oh my gosh.
She's newly married. Her husband also is racing now. So, and my
a racing family.
for real,
That's hilarious.
my former
like the
mother,
Andretti's, right? Or more than
kind
that.
of like
yeah.
that. My former mother-in-law, Jackie, I love her dearly, and she's a former drag racer. And my former father-in-law, Bill, was a drag racer when he was younger. Both of them were certified in tech inspection with the National Hot Rod Association. So I knew somehow that to honor them properly, since this happened because of driving, it needed to have something to do with a car.
Yeah.
And I had been around or watched shows of a couple other people that had used vehicles to get messages across. And that's where it all started. And so at the time of the crash, I drove a Mustang convertible, but I knew to honor them with a car, it could not be with a Ford Mustang because this was a family of Chevy drivers.
Oh yeah, you can't do that.
So when I officially decided to do that, I reached out to my guy, JoJo.
My guy, JoJo.
My guy, JoJo.
I wish I had a guy named JoJo.
Well, JoJo Stockard is an amazing guy, and he is an amazing car salesman. That's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But I said, JoJo, here's where I'm at. I need a Chevrolet sports car, and there's only 2 of those, and one of those is out of my budget. So we need to find a Camaro. And he said, Brenda, I just got one in today.
Nice.
And then he told me...
It fell off the back of a truck, if you know what I mean.
Right. But then he told me I had looked at that exact same car a year before, and it had already sold.
Wow.
Well, that couple, through some misfortune, actually sold it back to the dealership, and he said, it's here, but I was out of town. So I was telling the story to someone else that I was with, and I'm like, I'm going to see, when I get home Monday, if it's there, I'm going to go drive it. Well, JoJo contacted me and said, the car has already been sold.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, okay, well then that wasn't meant to be. Although it was red, which was Jenna and Holly's school colors, and I thought that would have been perfect. But okay, that was not to be. What I didn't know is that the person that I was with telling the story to thought that I was definitely supposed to have that car. So they actually called the dealership, and they actually made a purchase over the phone.
Wow.
And so
So that was the person that you were talking to. Oh
absolutely.
My gosh.
And so she made that original purchase.
Oh.
Ultimately, it ended up that the day after, when I got back, I realized what's happened. Oh my gosh, here's this car. It was brought back to my garage. And the next day I found out I had COVID.
Oh.
And I became very ill.
Oh my gosh.
With COVID. I had, a year after I lost my daughter, I lost my dad to COVID. So here we are, dealing with this brand new car. This car's in my garage, and then I got sick. So it sat out there for a while, and then they told me that I had the long haul COVID, and it just lingered and lingered and lingered.
Oh my God.
So finally, when all of that got better and I was back to work and things were a little bit better, then we decided that it made sense for the car to officially be in my name and everything. So the car was sold back to the dealership, and I bought it from the dealership. So it's a crazy story of just acquiring the car. And
I would almost be afraid at the end of it. I mean, I'm not going to sell it back to the dealership because you might not give it back to me.
I know it was a crazy transaction, and I appreciate all the hands that touched that and that ultimately gave it to me
and gave you COVID. Oh, you mean the
right.
the car.
I did joke. I was like, I felt fine when I was test driving the car, and then the next day I had COVID. So it's kind of the running joke. But I ended up with the car. It was red. It had black racing stripes on it.
Gorgeous car.
But I made changes to it. And so through My guy Bill down at Canham Graphics in Pawnee.
We got my guy Bill. We got
I do
JoJo.
I've got him everywhere.
We got Rico somewhere probably.
These people have, to tell all the hands that have touched this and have touched this project. My best buddy since kindergarten, Matt Culley, he has babied that car and has ceramic coated it and done so many cool things to it and did so many modifications. Everyone that has touched this car, graphic wise, other modifications, they have truly loved being a part of the process. And you know, this person that helped us come up with the official concept for the car, for the graphics. One thing that I really like about it, and actually a year or so ago, 217 Problems had something up, and I talked about my car just in a post on Facebook, and I had a couple of haters on there that talked about the irony of a car being so graphically made up that's supposed to bring attention to distracted driving, right?
Okay, right.
And so the thing that I said then, and I've continued to say, is that so much thought was put into the safety factor in doing the graphics on this car.
Great, yeah.
And so what I like most is that this company does a lot of our state vehicles. And so they are very well versed on Illinois Department of Transportation standards and what should be seen from what distance, and clear down to the size of the letters and the font that is used. And so that was very, very important to me, that we did not cause any crashes.
Distraction.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not like you have like a flashing light on the back.
Right.
And yeah, okay.
But I have had a few people
Sure.
that have made comment to that.
I can comedically see the irony in that, but the fact that you put the thought into it, and yeah, because I could tell, because the decals are down there by the license plate, which is where they usually are, where the eye is going to go. And
that's where we wanted the bulk of the message to be on the back, because
Yeah.
we knew that if you saw the message on the back reminding people to put their phone down, that you were stopped at a red light, you were at a stop sign behind me, or at least that you were facing forward and doing what you were supposed to do
Right.
and driving. That's why we purposely put the bulk of the message back there. And
you can put it on the front backwards. So it's a don't be shit.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
and
it's-
so that was the big thing, was being very mindful with safety. And I feel because of who did it and because of their background with, creating these things based off of these standards of safety, I felt really good about that, walking out of that. And seeing that car for the first time when it was just a concept, it started from a logo on an iPad that my daughter started crafting on an iPad. And then the two of us redid it and had everything on there. Everything is very purposeful in that logo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Clear down to the 2 sets of 3 trees on the logo, because Jenna had just received number 33 as her varsity basketball number. So a lot of purpose went in, and a lot of thought went in, and to see that logo blown up and so giant on the hood of my car, and then seeing the road, because the road is windy for a whole purpose on there, and that is because this road that we're on is certainly not a straight path and is full of ups and downs, and we wanted to illustrate that, but everything was very purposeful, and to see it all come together and put on the car. And then ultimately my big plan at the beginning was to get it in car shows and to have people see it that also like cars, because I felt that was a good way to honor them, was to be at atmospheres like that. I was used to that from showing, my car before when I had my Firebird. And so that was the big thing, was to be able to show that. And straight out the gate, I was at the Secretary of State's car show last September, but everything changed when I was in the Route 66 parade at the end of September last year, because in the lineup for that parade on that first day of Route 66 on Friday, a woman appeared and said, "Who owns this car?" And I said, "I do." And she said, "This car needs to be in Chicago." And so when I first met Becky, she was the head of a nonprofit group called Illinois Camaro, full of Camaro enthusiasts from across the state, housed out of Chicagoland. And Becky started putting things into place from that very moment. She took pictures of my car that night, late that night. I met her and some of her group, and she said, let's figure this out. And so from that chance crazy encounter in September, February, my car was moved into the McCormick Center in Chicago, and it was on display for 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
And that was surreal.
I bet.
When you think of 260,000 people passing by my car, and I can't even tell you how many thousands of people got the message, talked to me. I lost my voice by the end of it. And
that's a good reason to lose your voice.
I gave away over 6,000 bracelets with our cause on it, and talked to so many young people and moms that were grabbing their teenage sons and putting them in front of me and saying, "Listen to this mom."
Yeah.
It was very powerful.
And you got to think, I mean, how many people you've spoken with. And I mean, if that message gets into whatever percent's brain,
Right.
I mean, the good that you've done.
You know, it's very cliche to say if you can just reach one person, but it is so true.
Absolutely.
Because the numbers of young people, you know, high schools at Williamsville and New Berlin and Pleasant Plains and Riverton and places that are on, you know, hopefully in the future, the numbers of young people that I spoke to at the high school level last year, some of them I currently have had in class this year.
Oh, wow.
And people that I gave a bracelet to over a year ago actually come by my office and say, "Hey, you spoke at my school. My bracelet broke. Will you give me another one? I want to
cool.
keep that on my wrist." That is very powerful. And the numbers of people that have said things like, "I pull over when I take that important call." That's a big deal. When I have people that are very busy attorneys and in other jobs where communication is key, they tell me, "I think twice. I pull over. I utilize my car features in order to do that." And the people that have told me, "I pay more attention to my children now.
Oh, wow.
I love my family more and I spend more time." That's one of the best things, certainly, that can come out of this.
Well, and like we said, I mean, you took the worst, possible situation and turned it into something that's touched so many people, and it's helped so many people. And if they want to learn more or see the car or anything, how do they do that?
All of my social media was taken from me last October. Hackers took my entire life.
What?
Back in the fall.
Out of all the people you could hack, why would you, that's awful.
It is awful. It happened. It happened so quickly. And, you know, taking my personal page, taking my business pages, taking my Instagram. But the page that really upset me the most was our page dedicated to the memory of Jenna.
Right.
It's still out there. Find Joy in the Journey, Love Jenna is still out there, and the hacker never touched it. We just don't have control over it. But we started a new page to, you know, maybe we'll still get that old one back. Facebook has not been very, very good about that.
Facebook,
at this point.
can we please help her get the page back? Come on.
I've appealed in so many ways that so many people got scammed out of thousands of dollars in my name, and that.
Oh, are you serious?
Oh yeah, one of my former students, all by herself, was scammed out of $1,400. Then the hackers started selling these fake items through my page, and then they sent them to my house to pick them up.
What the what
Yeah.
evil assholes.
I know.
Oh my
I know.
God.
So that's a whole other other podcast right there.
That's awful.
But I utilized the media at that time to try to get the word out about that. And luckily I had a television station and local media in my hometown of Jacksonville that they rose to the occasion and told the story to try to get it in front of as many people so they would stop stop buying these fake items. And
just horrible.
It is horrible.
You should never con anybody, but if you con anybody, don't do it under those pretenses.
I know, it's terrible. But I will say, while that page is still out, I have been putting more attention to this new initiative. And so find joy, be kind, just drive. That is the Facebook page that is currently up there. And that is the message that's on my car that we're trying to get out there. So they can go to Facebook and get linked up to that and get linked up to us in those ways too.
And Brenda, thank you so much for coming on to the show. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing for families and young people and all of us, because everybody is affected by a car accident. I mean, obviously, like you said. So it's very important that all of us, myself included, not get distracted while we drive. And hopefully you're watching this at home or listening to it while you drive. And then once you pull over, hit that subscribe button. How about that? That's a good move. Safely hit that subscribe.
Good segue into that.
There you go. And follow us on social media. And we're going to be back here next week. Brenda, thank you so much one more time. And we'll see you guys. It's the 217 Probcast. Say bye-bye, Brenda.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I appreciate you.
Time to get those cream pies I was telling you about. We're going to throw them at each other, okay? You ready for that?
It.
All right.
Got
good.
it.